and Kevin Judge, another Kevin. Welcome to Project 180.
Hey, Kevin, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm super happy to have you. I always like chatting with you. We don't chat enough, I find, but it's always good to get you on the phone and talk shop stuff with you. So thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely.
So maybe, because I know you, but not everybody does. So can you just kind of give a quick intro on who you are and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So, name is Kevin Judge, and I'm the founder and CEO of iNoble Business Strategic Analysis Company. And after 20 odd years in the corporate world across a number of different industries, I decided to get into business for myself and grow a team of consultants and analysts, and love helping organizations to really look at how can they execute on their most critical initiatives with the least amount of friction.
I like how you phrase that, and the least amount of friction. And it harkens back to a company I worked for when the tagline for the company was frictionless business, which
Oh, cool.
didn't quite sound right. But still, I think in terms of friction, I think that's the most critical issue probably in a lot of organizations is, you've got a goal, you've got a strategy, but then getting there can be tough for
Yeah.
various reasons. Um, can you maybe explain, to the gathered masses who are watching this, what how you would define strategy and how important that is to an organization?
Yeah, I guess I'm sure we could look up strategy in Google or ChatGPT and come up with a nice, concise answer. And I'd love to say it's something that's really clean, but it's really not. So strategy to me is just thinking about what do we need to do to advance the business and it could be on a personal level or an organizational level, but what do we need to do to advance? And it's getting away from being stuck in the day-to-day operational work, all the day-to-day tactics, and focusing in on what are some of those big pieces that need to be done to help us reach a desired future state. And it's up to you what that desired future state is. I'd never be the person to say that's right or wrong, but what is it that you're going to do that's going to get you there? Or are you perhaps stuck day to day working on stuff and you're never making any progress towards those big goals? And the next thing you know, 3 months, 6 months, a year has gone by and you're no further
Yeah.
ahead. Right.
Well, and I think we've all seen this. I know you're a consultant, so you see this with a lot of your clients. I've seen it. I'm not a consultant. Um, why? Like, what happens? What gets in the way? Because it seems so obvious, right? Like we've got the strategy. We're going to accomplish X by the end of the year. We're going to change the world in this way.
Yeah.
But then you're struggling and you're clawing to get there. Like, what is you're talking about, getting bogged down in that day-to-day stuff. Why do leaders, whether it's be for a project or for an entire organization, why are you getting stuck in that?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of reasons, but some of the common ones would be I guess the first one would be, well, there's actually no strategy. So
Right.
I was working with a client recently that said, we're waiting for our executive team to tell us what the strategy is, and our executive team is waiting for us to tell them what the strategy is. So, with
Right.
that in
Like,
mind,
somebody do something here.
well,
Right.
exactly, and that's what I said. I'm like, well, you can sit and wait, or you can just make your own strategy and go. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Challenges with that, though, is that sometimes people don't have the skill set. They don't know how to think strategically. They don't know what a strategic plan is. They have doubts in their ability to do it. So, with that, it could be their own skills gaps of people in the rest of the organization. It could be a lack of delegation of authority. Like, executive leaders may not let middle managers make decisions, and therefore those middle managers aren't thinking strategically. So that really kind of focuses in on like the overall culture of the organization. But
Yeah.
the I'd say the number one reason why people get stuck in it is we're firefighting for a reason. it's because there's a fire right in front of us that needs to get solved, right? We have these
Fair.
problems that come up day to day. But unless you can figure out how can you solve those so they don't become day-to-day problems and spend some time on the more strategic stuff, then you're gonna have some failures as an organization and as a leader yourself.
Yeah. A couple things pop up there, like in
Yeah.
terms of delegation, because you hinted at that too. Why I'm the leader of this organization. I feel I'm obliged to do all this firefighting.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily have to do that. Well, why am I not delegating? Because I'm assuming I've hired competent people, right? I wouldn't have hired people if they weren't competent, or in my opinion, they weren't competent.
Yeah, hope so.
So why am I? So it does happen.
Yeah.
But why am I not delegating? Is it just this kind of sense of ego or responsibility? Like this is this is my thing to take care of, and I feel this ownership. How do I bridge the gap from having that I got to do everything to actually being able to delegate to these competent folks I've hired?
Yeah, it's funny because when you ask that question, I have a visual that comes to mind, and it's unfair, but it's of me lying on a psychologist's couch trying to figure out why am I not delegating. But there's so many reasons. I remember thinking back to when I was in corporate and I had a team of very very intelligent people that was on my team, and at the end of the quarter, I was feeling overwhelmed with all of the work that I was doing. So I actually took down I brainstormed a list of here's everything that I'm involved with. And I realized very quickly that some of it I wanted to do because it was about me growing personally. Some of it I was just attached to for ego, for sure,
Yeah.
or political reasons. I thought it was important for me to be seen as part of it. But other times, and now this is less about me, but more for other people. Other times, people don't know how to delegate. They don't have resources to delegate to, or maybe those resources don't have the expertise to be able to do stuff, or they're terrified that what happens if it goes wrong, and what are the implications of that for them and for the organization. So there's lots of ways around it. It doesn't have to be that hard to delegate, but I think there's a natural tendency for many managers to hold on to stuff rather than to delegate it out and coach people for success.
Well, and frankly, I've been on both sides of that. I'm sure you have too. I mean, we're both at certain times in our careers, the gray hair kind of
That's right.
it indicates a certain
What
amount.
hair?
But I didn't want to draw attention to it, but I'm almost there to myself. Anyway, but no, like being on both sides of it and like saying, "Oh, look, I can do this for you. I can take this load from you and like make your life easier." I'm being on that side.
Yeah.
But if they're not necessarily confident or they can't articulate what really needs done, or what, like you said, even politically, I think that's really critical too, because in some, especially unhealthy, we'll say, organizations where the pressure is on you to perform at this level, and if you don't, if you're even down 5%, you look like you're not what we wanted or whatever, right? So that which is indicative of an unhealthy, even a toxic environment.
It absolutely is.
So how do you like what I know there's no one size fits all message here, but like there's so many steps that can be done, like because now we're veering into obviously a situation where it's not just going to be you or me in the example who's fighting this fight. It's the whole organization's got to change. So how do you have a conversation about changing that culture? Because it's not even just about, boy, I'm overloaded for the next 3 months. I got to hire somebody to take this on and then upskill them and train them and whatever.
Yeah.
But like the whole culture has to shift.
Absolutely. And when we talk about culture, we could be talking about the culture within just a small team of people, or the culture within an office or a region, or the overall organization as a whole. And all of those come into play. The easiest thing to do is just to change the culture of your immediate team, and just make some decisions on here's how we're going to operate, and do that with the team. But when it comes to the overall organization, I've I've had some clients in the past where you could tell there was a problem with their culture and decision making and getting things done, and the organization was fearful of not growing anymore. In fact, they were fearful of going the other way and becoming obsolete. And
Yeah.
so we ended up doing a data driven cultural assessment and looked at that against norms for successful organizations, and we're able to pinpoint, hey, here's the 3 places that if you focus on changing, then you're going to have the greatest impact for your organization, right? So the solution to how
I
do you
like
fix
that.
your culture can go from anything from back of the napkin approach to full on research project, right? And it depends on the desire of the leader and the rest of it. But it starts with
Yeah.
communicating and realizing, hey, we need to change something.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big survey guy, and at my current full time, I do a lot of that, just not just within our internal team, but externally as well. It's like, okay, we need to know this. Let's just ask everybody, right? Seems
Yeah.
so simple, but I think if we go back to the concept, like the toxic organization, maybe it's a micromanaging organization or whatever it is. If I am now going to ask the team for their feedback, and I'm now going to research, like you say,
Yeah.
what a good high performing team looks like and the data associated with that, I'm essentially, as soon as I speak that we're going to try this, I'm committing to a change that I
Oh
might not be
no.
ready for as an organization, right?
Right.
So you really got to go all in as soon as you even mention it, because if you don't, then the team's just like, okay, we're done. Like, I'm out. Like, this isn't good for me anymore, right?
Yeah.
Then it becomes either lip service or something, another thing that we didn't do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that inaction, I believe, is really based on fear
Mhm.
from leaders. Sorry to say it, but we're all fearful as leaders. We're fearful of a whole bunch of things, but one of them is a lack of success or failing ourselves. Talking about again that whole organizational culture assessment. I was working with another organization. They reached out because they knew they had a problem. They reached out to their employees to ask them, hey, can you tell us about our culture and how we're doing, what's working, what's not working, etc.
Yeah.
And they were too afraid to share the results of the assessment with the employees. Like, first of all,
Really?
complete waste of time. Like, don't even
Wow.
bother. Um, and the employees already know there's a problem, right? So you actually win a lot of points by telling people, hey, thank you, we got your feedback, and you're right, there's a problem and we're working on it. You don't need to
Yeah.
say, oh, Kevin McGowan's a terrible leader and we're going to fire him. No, that's not. And I'm joking, but that's
That's not
not.
that's not the segment I'm going to use for promotional
Okay, you
purposes,
can
by the
edit
way.
that out. Right, if only we could all be like Kevin and Kevin. um
Better.
there you go. So when we reach out to people, we need to, one, be committed to communicate, because people already know there's something going on, and the
Yeah.
act in communicating the results, even if it's just a, hey, thanks for giving it to us, we're thinking about it, shows people that you've got positive intent and that you're doing something. So we don't have to solve the entire culture thing. We don't have to solve the entire strategic planning thing, or whatever it is. We don't have to solve it all in one big piece. Just take
Yeah.
baby steps and ask yourself, what's the simplest next step I could take? And take it. And then
Mhm.
what's the next simplest step I could take? And maybe it takes a little bit of time to get there, but you're creating momentum. And that
Yeah.
momentum is going to keep rolling and rolling and exponentially growing. And eventually you'll have success.
Yeah. I really like it's this incremental approach. And even if you're like a software company, for example, because that's where I live a lot of my life, but is that agile development thing, right? You do these little pieces. What are the needs right now? Great, you work on that. Oh, needs have changed, or we've got a new thing, and they just kind of keep, and you see the progress over time. Within
Yeah.
3 months, all of a sudden things have shifted, and you've delivered 5 great new initiatives or whatever that might be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But when you're doing that, if you've got a roadmap of where you want to go or where you want to end up at, all those little incremental pieces will get you there, rather than just saying, "Oh, this is a fire I'm fighting today," right? So that's
Yeah.
what that's back to the where does the strategy fit in, and how do you get stuck from being in that tactical firefighting?
Yeah. No, that's it's really interesting. And we've been about the surveys and stuff, and you're right. Asking the question, you even if you need some time to think about, ooh, this is worse than I thought, like, and you really need to maybe reflect on yourself and on your managerial style and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember, I won't name the company, they don't exist anymore, but I won't name it. But
Okay.
at some point in my junior years in like the 90s, I ended up in a meeting with a bunch of like VPs of this company. I must have been just there to take notes or something. I don't know why I was there. I don't remember. But they were talking about, customer satisfaction surveys and how, wow, we're always like 99.8%, blah, blah, blah. And employee satisfaction is always, 92.6 or whatever it was. They were all really,
Mm.
really high. One of the VPs just kind of said, well, we don't count the bad.
Oh, we don't count the bad ones. We just, yeah.
So,
Okay.
so a negative, really negative reviews, oh, that just kind of accidentally got cleaned out of the data, right? So they could
Wow.
say that they were 90%, which is clearly indicative rather of a pretty bad, situation. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that, I think people could get away with that, 25, 30 years ago. I don't think that's necessarily possible now
Yeah. You know what?
to be able to hide it like that.
Every organization, here's a really bad analogy for you, but every organization's got some rotting food in the fridge somewhere, right?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're not seeing it or getting a whiff of it, you're maybe not asking the right questions,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
that's true. Go clean out the fridge
That's
in the
right.
break room. Well, okay, so last question. I know, like, this is another thing we could talk about for hours, but um, when you've gotten to a point, you recognize, okay, we need to work on this strategy piece. We need to maybe delegate and shift responsibilities around. We're recognizing our culture isn't quite there. It's maybe an obvious question, but what are the risks of procrastinating? Like on really overthinking this, like you're talking about incremental changes and what's that next easy step I can make.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what if I push that off a quarter? What risk am I really making for my organization?
Yeah. What's a quarter, right? And that, it's only 3 months, and then another quarter, and then another quarter. So, I like to think of this at both the organizational level, but also the individual leader level. So from an organization, it's very easy to say, hey, some of the costs, you don't get some of the long-term stuff done, which means you're not reaching those more strategic goals that the organization hopefully has in place. You're not satisfying customer needs. You're limiting the growth of the organization, which can affect profits and upset your stakeholders, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the easy, hey, what happens if we procrastinate on this? And unfortunately, you don't see that coming up until it's too late. But if we talk about the individual, if you, the leader, are stuck in that day-to-day tactical firefighting rather than thinking on the strategic side of things, at least even a little bit, then your career is going to stagnate. Your executives, your senior leaders, your board of directors are going to get upset at you because you're not advancing the organization. And when they're not happy with you, you do not progress in your career. If you're in an organization that actually manages performance and sets goals, and maybe your compensation is based on achieving some of those goals, well, tactical day-to-day firefighting should not be one of your goals. You have bigger long-range projects to do, and if you're not focusing on them even a little bit, then you're not going to get them done, which means you're going to have a financial hit to yourself, right? And then there's also your personal reputation, right? It feels good in the moment to be the hero, but it really comes down to, well, what are you doing for yourself and for your team and for the organization long term to help it grow and sustain that growth, so that you continue to have a job there and that the organization continues to be successful. So just a few costs.
Yeah, just little things.
Yeah.
No big deal. No, that's great, Kevin. I really appreciate you. Well, first of all, for taking the time again today. We'll wrap things up there. But I want to ask quickly, you're a consultant, so let's throw your consultancy into this. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you know what? There's a few things that I've got going right now. So I have an executive leaders exchange happening, which is a group of people that get together to talk about issues and share ideas on how to solve them. So no monologues, no sales pitches. It's really just a bunch of executives getting together to do that. So if people want to have an invitation to that, they can go on my website, inoble.com. So INOBL.com. And they can request an invite to that. And also on that site, very soon, there will be an offer for a free assessment that you can use. It's like a back of the napkin assessment to determine, am I in trouble or not when it comes to being stuck in day-to-day operations and tactical firefighting, and some advice on how to get through that.
Yeah, but thanks for sharing that. And again, Kevin, thanks so much for taking the time today. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thanks for having me, Kevin.